The morning I was supposed to leave for Hawaii, I stood at an airport check-in counter while my entire family laughed at me and recorded it. My name is Rachel Lawson. I'm 33 years old. I'm a senior software engineer living alone in Portland, Oregon. And for 6 years, I handed my family everything: my paycheck, my health, my peace of mind, because I believed that's what love looked like. I was wrong. And the moment I figured that out, changed my life forever. But to understand why that airport moment broke something loose inside me, you have to understand how we got there. Because this story didn't start at a check-in counter. It started long before that, in the kind of household where cruelty was dressed up as comedy and exploitation was called family. Growing up, my family had a tradition. Not dinner on Sundays or birthday cakes with candles. Their tradition was humiliation disguised as humor. When I turned 16, my father blindfolded me, walked me to the driveway, and let the whole family cheer as he pulled the cloth off, revealing a toy car, plastic wheels, a bow on top. They laughed for weeks. I scrubbed restaurant tables until my hands cracked, just to buy myself real transportation. College wasn't any different. My parents threw a party where they stood in front of every relative we owned and promised, on their honor, to cover my tuition. 2 weeks later, they handed me a stack of loan forms and called the whole thing a joke. I signed every page. I'm still paying $41,000 of debt, still bleeding out of my account monthly. The price of believing people who never deserved my trust. As the years passed, the jokes stopped being harmless. They evolved. What started as pranks became patterns. What started as patterns became systems. And those systems cost me thousands every single month. My father retired early with zero plans and no apology, but his golf club membership, $800 a month, charged straight to me. My mother worked part-time at a boutique, but still lived like she had a personal stylist, $600 to $900 monthly, just for her hair and nails. And then, there was my brother Derek. 4 different college majors, 0 degrees. But every semester without fail, his tuition bill, $9,000, landed in my account like clockwork. They ate at restaurants. They booked weekend trips. They bought gadgets and grinned. Meanwhile, I lived in a 600-square-foot apartment, drove a car with a cracked bumper, and ate leftovers alone at a folding table with only my goldfish, Henry, for company. My ex-boyfriend Marcus once overheard my family talking at a holiday gathering. He pulled me aside afterward, face tight. "They called you their golden goose," he said. They were laughing. I told him he'd misheard. I defended them. I always defended them. It took me years to admit that Marcus saw my family more clearly in one evening than I had in a lifetime. The physical toll was impossible to ignore. Migraines that started behind my eyes and spread like wildfire. Blood pressure high enough that my doctor sat me down and said, "Rachel, whatever you're carrying, you have to put some of it down." I nodded. I smiled. I went home and transferred money to my brother's school portal. 60-hour work weeks blurred into each other. My apartment was nothing more than a place to recharge before the cycle started again. Wake, code, pay, collapse. Every buzz of my phone was another demand. Dad's dues, mom's appointment, Derek's emergency. I told myself, this is love. This is sacrifice. They'll see it eventually. But eventually never came. It was the silence, not the demands, that finally broke me. The silence of eating dinner alone while they posted vacation photos. The silence at 2 a.m. when I lay staring at the ceiling, asking the dark whether any of this was real. That's when I decided to plan the trip. Hawaii became everything to me, not just a vacation, a proof of concept. If I could get my family onto a beach, away from routines and resentments, maybe we could finally become something real. Maybe laughter could exist between us, without a punchline at my expense. I spent $8,000 of my personal savings. Premium flights, an oceanfront suite, a surprise helicopter tour I'd been dreaming about for 3 years. I wanted to give them the version of a family I had always imagined we could be. The night before, I stood in my kitchen with my suitcase packed and my boarding pass printed. Henry floated quietly in his bowl. I whispered to him that this trip was going to change everything. I actually believed it. The drive to the airport felt almost normal. My brother stared at his phone. My mother talked about the beach. My father drove my leased SUV, leased under my name, naturally, with the window cracked like he owned the world. I stared out at the highway, already feeling the imaginary sand between my toes. We reached check-in. I stepped to the counter. The agent typed, and then she typed again, and then she looked at me, that careful, apologetic expression that agents wear when they're about to ruin your day. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This reservation was canceled 2 days ago." I turned to my family, not because I suspected them, because I needed them. And what I saw will live in me forever. My father was doubled over, clutching his sides. My brother had his phone pointed directly at my face, grinning. My mother stood back slightly, the way people stand when they want deniability, wearing a small, satisfied smile. "It's just a prank," she said, waving her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Don't be so dramatic." I heard myself speak in a voice that sounded very far away. "I paid for the hotel. I paid for everything." My father clapped me on the shoulder. "You work too hard anyway. Stay home. Rest up." My brother muttered something under his breath. I saw the shape of the word, even if I couldn't hear it. "Loser." He kept filming. A text arrived from my father. I looked down at my phone. It read, "The plane's not for you. Enjoy the train, loser." The agent cleared her throat gently. Behind me, a line of strangers had gone uncomfortably still. I forced my legs to move. I don't remember the drive home. I remember my knuckles on the steering wheel. I remember the moment I sat down at my desk, opened my banking app, and finally, for the first time in 6 years, looked at the numbers with clear eyes. Monthly transfer to parents, $3,400. Derek's tuition due in 5 days, $9,000. Dad's golf membership, $800. Mom's salon fund, $750. I sat with those numbers until the room went quiet around me. Then I started canceling. Derek's tuition, gone. Dad's golf dues, over. Mom's salon fund, closed. Emergency account, new password, locked tight. Credit card access, their names removed. 15 minutes. That was all it took to undo 6 years of silence and giving and shrinking myself smaller. My hand didn't shake once. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled so deeply my whole body shook. Not from grief, from relief. The kind that comes when you finally stop holding something too heavy to carry. They returned home early, of course they did. My phone exploded first. Calls stacked on calls, texts arriving in waves. Then the knock at my door, hard and impatient. I opened it. My father pushed inside without being invited, dragging his carry-on like a weapon. "You canceled my golf membership," he said, voice shaking with a fury that looked a lot like fear. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" My mother followed, sunglasses on indoors, voice trembling. "My salon appointments, Rachel, you know what that means to me." Derek hung in the doorway, some of the arrogance drained out of him. "My tuition is due. I'll lose my enrollment." "You can't?" "I can," I said, quietly, no apology. My father drew himself up. "We raised you. You owe us. That's what family means." I had heard those exact words in that exact order my entire life, and for the first time I was ready for them. "No," I said. "You raised me and then you charged me for it. That's not family. That's a subscription service." My mother made a sound like I'd slapped her. My father's jaw tightened. Derek looked at his shoes. "They cycled through every tactic. Guilt. After everything we've done. Manipulation. We've sacrificed so much for you. Anger. You're destroying this family." Tears, my mother's, were instant, manufactured like a reflex she'd been practicing for decades. My therapist had told me once, say no without explanation, no as a complete sentence. So that's what I gave them. No. 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 My father slammed his palm on my coffee table. The room rattled. I didn't move. "Family supports each other," he said. "Then you should have started," I answered. I picked up my keys. I walked to the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back once, just once, and looked at all 3 of them standing in the small living room of my small apartment, surrounded by the quiet life I had built entirely alone. "Lock up when you leave," I said. "And good luck. I think you'll actually be fine." And then I left. The weeks that followed felt like recovering from a long illness. My body didn't know what to do with the absence of dread. The first week, I kept bracing for the familiar buzz of a demand, the tight knot of obligation. But it didn't come, or when it did, I didn't answer. Slowly, my nervous system started to believe it was actually over. My headaches faded. My blood pressure dropped to numbers my doctor called remarkable. I started sleeping past 5 a.m. without bolting awake. Work changed too. Without the constant mental drain of managing their needs, my focus returned. I took on a project I'd been too exhausted to attempt for 2 years. 3 months later, I was promoted, a recognition I'd nearly given up believing I deserved. I joined a hiking group. I started cooking real meals again, the kind that take time and fill an apartment with good smells. Henry the goldfish got a companion, a second bowl, a little castle decoration. Small things, but mine. And I started dating someone new. His name is James. The first time we went to dinner, he reached for the check without discussion and split it exactly down the middle. I had to look away so he wouldn't see my eyes go glassy. Something that simple, being seen as an equal, not a resource, felt like a language I was learning to speak again for the first time. As for my family, they adjusted. My father sold his golf clubs and took a job at a hardware store. My mother cut back to discount salons and picked up extra shifts at her boutique. Derek transferred to community college and, from what I heard, actually started showing up to class. They were angry. They were resentful. They made sure I knew it through every channel available to them. I let them be angry, because beneath the noise, something true had finally surfaced. They were capable the whole time. They simply never had reason to try. I booked Hawaii again. This time, alone. I sat on the beach the first evening and watched the sun pull color out of the ocean, orange and gold bleeding into the water. A helicopter tour lifted from a pad nearby, the same one I'd reserved for the trip that never happened. I booked it for myself instead. The pilot asked, somewhere above the volcanic ridgeline, whether I minded experiencing something this beautiful without company. I looked out at the islands spread below me, green and ancient and indifferent to all the drama that had led me here. No, I said, and I meant it the way you mean things when they stop being words and become something else. I've never felt less alone. My therapist calls what I did reclaiming your narrative. I call it surviving. Because there's a version of my story where I never cancel those transfers, never stand up to my father, never stop shrinking. That version of me is still in her apartment, still exhausted, still pretending that being used is the same thing as being loved. But here's what I know now. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the first honest thing you can offer another person. And family, real family, doesn't require you to disappear inside it. The bravest thing I ever did was also the simplest. I stopped saying yes when I meant no. I stopped paying for love that was never for sale in the first place. If any part of this story feels familiar, if you recognize yourself in the silence and the transfers and the long nights, I want you to know something. You're not a punchline. You're not an ATM. We're not obligated to fund the comfort of people who mistake your kindness for weakness. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you will ever say is the shortest word in the English language. No. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've been through something similar, drop it in the comments. You might be the reminder someone out there desperately needs today.